Welcome back, everyone, to Inside Texas Baseball. I'm your host, Evan Veith. As always, joined by Nash Texas Talks Texas right next to me. I looked over at your face. You're staring at the camera, and I'm like, it just made me butcher your name immediately, Nash. It's been a week since the horrors that happened at UFCU Dish Falk Field. That's one way to put it for the Texas baseball team. Lots happened in the baseball world. Not too much in the transfer portal since then, apart from one little pickup. But Nash, how have you been doing this week? What are you excited for this offseason?
I've been sitting here sulking around the house, man. I'm not gonna lie. This time of year, it's hitting a little bit worse than last year because last year it was like, okay, you know what, we're like moving on from David Pierce, right? We're going a new direction. Granted, this year might have been, I don't know if it was found money. To some people it is, but just how good the year was going on, just to have it end how it did, man. It's painful to sit here also knowing like, man, Texas would be sitting in a pretty really good spot if
Yeah,
if we had made it to Omaha. So it sucks, but
SEC,
we're moving
SEC did
on.
not. The SEC did not exactly take care of business these past few weeks, and
No, this tournament is an anomaly for the SEC.
it's really it's wide open, and that would have been, if Texas had peaked at a better time, it would have been a really good spot to be in. But of course, we're here to talk about the offseason. So Connor, if you wouldn't mind pulling up that doc that Nash has graciously made for us, just talk a little bit about who's gone, who's still around on this Texas team. You see the transfer portal out. That was a big thing. A lot of names did enter. Guys like Oliver Service, kind of a glue guy. Shaquay Stewart, who did get some playing time this year. The biggest names, the two biggest ones, are Tommy Farmer, the fourth, an outfielder. Started most of the year, kind of lost his spot at the end to Jonah Williams, but really an important player for the team this year. Really good, like defense, speed, good contact bat. Had a few strokes of power there, and then Ace Whitehead, who didn't get a chance to pitch this year, but was one of the only really good starting pitchers on the team last season. He was a senior, is going to get one more year of eligibility, but a lot of turnover from these freshmen from the class that wasn't really Schlossnagels. It was a lot of David Pierce guys, and that's what you expect. But are there any of these guys who maybe not on the Farmer Whitehead level, but players that you're kind of wishing were sticking around for this team and we're hoping could have been a long term plan for Schlossnagel's staff? I guess would be the word there.
I mean, I looking at Tommy Farmer. I guess I know you said not on the Tommy Farmer Whitehead level, but uh, Donovan Jordan. That's a guy that I was probably pretty excited. I think out of all the Texas guys, he is the highest rated. Samuel Richardson, he was also really, really, that dude has a very, very powerful bat, very loud bat. And honestly, same goes for Matt Scott. Like, these are all some of the guys that I really wish we could have seen, get some of the, plate appearances early on the year. Uh, but, Jim Schlossnagle, he kind of had his one, he likes his lefties. Two, he does also, it was kind of one early on, he wanted to figure out, hey, let's get my guys, right? I want to go out there and, figure out who my core team is, and then we can go around that. And he just had to kind of use like the first quarter of the year, right? Kind of, using his guys. So he can't test out. He can't put a Samuel Richardson in. He can't put an Oliver Service in and all that stuff. So I guess Samuel Richardson, I'm going to cop out and say Samuel Richardson, Don Jordan, and Jaquay Stewart. But one interesting, when I look at the transfers, Tommy Farmer sticks out to me, man. That's a guy that probably would have been slotted in as a starter going into next year. And it tells me that I think that the staff thinks that they can get a upgrade over Tommy Farmer in the transfer portal.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I was noting at, is that if they're going to have these four outfielders coming back, the guys you're seeing on the screen, Williams, Gasparino, Winfield, we'll see about Baloo. That would be a long shot, but it seemed like Tommy Farmer was maybe not the guy of that group for Schlossing. It wasn't someone he brought in specifically, and like I said, a lot of these guys are kind of Pierce dudes that just aren't going to find a way. You pointed it out that the lefties are something that Schlossnagle really likes to go after. But I also agree with Richardson. Like I thought he had, he was the top ranked recruit in this last class that made it to campus, and I thought he was someone that maybe they could see the power there. They could see his potential to maybe become a contributor, not this next season, but season after that. But for some players, it's not what they're looking for. And I know Same thing for someone like Matt Scott. The big one is for me is Carson Luna, because right now on the roster, if Jalen Flores goes pro, there's no one to play shortstop. I mean, maybe Duplantier, maybe you can say Rodriguez, but there really isn't a shortstop. And obviously it's a position that they've kind of just had one player play since Flores has gotten there. He doesn't really switch in with anyone, I guess would be the word to use there. But Luna was the backup, and he was the only guy who could back him up. So that's where it's a bit surprising. But you do look over at the Texas roster side of things and the ones that are still technically part of the team now. There's players like Galvan, Flores, Baloo, who maybe aren't there yet, but there's still a lot of really good and really important, especially on the pitching staff, players to play for the long term. I'm looking at Volantis, looking at Harrison, looking at Bing, Rioja, Scrubs, Burns. They're bringing back a lot of pitcher talent. And that's what's really important, is that outside of Jared Spencer, who they had to deal with not even using in the last part of the year, there's still a lot of guys to come back with. So I think it's really good that Shaw Single's been able to keep a lot of these pitchers who's been using this past year, especially the Howards and Hamiltons and Raricks. Those guys not hitting the portal is really important in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I really just agree on the whole like Carson Luna thing. I mean, if you go and you look at Texas, we're in a situation now where, I mean, I think it's probably leaning that Jalen Flores isn't coming back. And so we're now in a situation where we have to get somebody out of the portal, because other than that, we're starting. I don't give a darn at short, right? I mean, good OG reference for some of y'all that know. You go to all like if Connor can go to the Texas 2025 signings tab on the bottom. I'm not sure if he, yeah, signings, yeah. You go and you look there. I want to see us kind of pull out some left-handed pitchers, out of the portal, because we're not really left-handed pitcher heavy on this current roster. And I mean, you got Volantis and Luke, and Luke Harrison. There's half your lefties right there. So, Robert Mitchell and McKernan, if we're able to get both those guys on the roster, that only adds 2 lefties. So I'd like to see more lefties. But you also go and look at the middle infield. I think Kason Cunningham is a longer shot to making the roster than Jalen Flores is, or landing probably both Eric Becker and that Chris Hessebian guy. So it's a deal where, man, yeah, Carson Luna, that was probably one of the bigger transfers off this roster that probably a lot of people, they like, if you're not a hardcore Texas fan, right? You're like, who's that guy? Right? Like, what was that? Right? But that is one of the transfers that might have one of the most impact on the team.
Yeah, and this signees tab, the Cunningham and Fiend just aren't going to make it. Cunningham's still a top 10 pick projected. Fiend's projected to be a first rounder in a lot of places I'm seeing. They would be instant impact players. I think you could maybe not go after a shortstop if Cunningham makes it, but that's just a long shot. You can't bank on that when the portal portion ends, I think, right before the draft. So you're going to have to get a shortstop in the portal. And I think the guy I'm most excited about out of this group is Anthony Pack Jr., someone who probably isn't going to make it into the draft. He's probably going to end up on campus, and he will be able to play immediately. He's super fast, really good bat-to-ball skills, walks. Someone that you can have as your fourth outfielder and be pretty happy with that, even if he's just a freshman. And you've seen Schlesinger will use the freshman players, especially on the pitching staff. So guys like Wes Falk, Ozark, Robert X. Mitchell, if they're going to make it, that would be pretty big additions from this summer. That would be nice to have on the roster. But Connor, if you want to bring up that kind of baseball diamond graphic we have just to show, exactly what we're looking at for next year. There's some positions that are definitely locked in for the Texas team: third base, second base, left field, center field, as much as some of our fans don't love Gasparino. DH, Josh Livingston was a pretty good pickup at first base. Really good hitter for a really bad Wichita State team. Left-handed hitter, which they've been clamoring for a while now. But I think a few things stick out. Shortstop, obviously, we've already talked about that. Pete Nakos had his kind of Jim Schlossing. What's Texas doing in the portal? Who are they looking at? And the big thing was that they're going big. They're looking at the 2 biggest Virginia transfers, Eric Becker and Henry Ford. Becker is the shortstop for them. Ford played outfield. I think he can even catch too, but I believe he's an outfielder. Seton Hall's Aiden Robbins, who's an outfielder, and then another big one, Chris Hakopian from Maryland, who is not eligible this year, but pretty much everywhere you go, you're seeing him as a top 10, 15 pick in the draft in this next cycle. Maybe a third baseman in the MLB, but shortstop in college. So that shortstop position is the one that they're really targeting in the portal. That's the one that they want to find a star at, someone to hit in the top 3-4 spots of the order. But outside of that, Nash, where would you most next want to see a big addition get added from the portal?
I mean, big addition, obviously, you're looking at shortstop, but I mean, I still don't necessarily think that it's entirely safe that you get a Jonah Williams back because there's a situation where, what if Jonah Williams balls out on the football team and Steve Sarkisian is like, yeah, you're not getting out of here. No, you think you're playing baseball? No, right? I could definitely see a situation like that. And what if Easton Winfield transfers? Like he's not happy with what happened this year. What if Will Gasparino goes down to an injury or something like that, right? You want to have outfielders. So I could definitely see a situation where, hey, let's go get a big time outfielder. And I know there are some outfielders that we are targeting right now, beyond some of the names that you said, but it's just, man, that's a situation where we need some bodies out there in the outfield. And then also beyond that too, like you mentioned Ford. Look, if we got Jonah Williams, Will Gasparino, Easton Winfield on this team next year, no offense to Cole Chamberlain, but I put Ford at catcher, right? And or at least let them battle, and let's figure out who the best guy is. Because Cole Chamberlain, that's a good guy that he can go push for a first base position, he can push for the DH position. So a lot of movement, a lot of flexibility there, but also too, you're going to see Jim Schlossnagle is going to target and priority a lot of lefties. He does like those athletic lefties, and to the outfield, a guy that you just mentioned a second ago, Anthony Pack Jr. Hey, lefty guy. Like that is he's almost the perfect example of what Schloss likes in these younger guys that he likes to play.
Yeah, and he's going to favor these guys that he's bringing in his class because it's now really his first class. That's the Jim Schlossnagle era of Texas. We're going to hear from Laura Baker before we go back into the rest of the Texas roster.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
There are going to need to be some players on this team that take that second year in the program step up. I think Winfield and Chamberlain are the poster childs of that needing to happen because even if they're not starting, even if Texas goes in and says, hey, we are going to get a catcher, a shortstop, and an outfielder, and we're going to have a pretty stacked transfer class of starting players for them coming in, you're still going to need Winfield and Chamberlain to be positive bats off the bench or work against Livingston, or for Winfield, work against whoever is coming in the outfield. That these guys are still going to be able to play. And I think that's an important part of what this roster needs is, hey, let's at least bring in competition for some of these guys, especially a catcher. If it's only going to be Chamberlain, there needs to be another body there at worst. But is there someone to compete with him there that gives him a reason to want to, actually fight for these spots? Because I really like what Cole Chamberlain does at the plate. He draws walks. He's got a really good eye. He has some power. You saw that early in the year. But I don't know if I want him specifically to be the guy at catcher. There's always the chance that someone like Galvan returns, or Ballou, or Flores. There's hope that could happen. But I don't think you can bank on that, Nash, going into next year. But talking about the pitching staff here, which we haven't talked a whole lot about because there's so much returning. Obviously, Dylan Volantis, you can see here, is going to be tapped in to be a starter this next year. He's going to be the Friday guy. Harrison Saturday. In theory, Riojas Sunday, Bing Tuesday. But I've been thinking about the idea of maybe bringing in a veteran Sunday guy for this team so that Riojas doesn't have to be that Sunday starter. Is that where you would look, or would you look more in the bullpen if they were to add a pitcher?
I mean, I would 100. I think I kind of already hinted at it a little bit earlier, saying bringing some of these lefty guys, but like just bringing a stud lefty arm. And I mean, honestly, now you're sitting there rocking with you got three lefties, going out there, lefty, 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 and that that can really mess with a team, and a little bit, get seeing different arm angles. But man, I really like. I don't. It's not. It's a tough one, right? Because like Ruger Riojas, right? It's not a situation where I don't like him starting, and I don't think that he can start. I think he can start, right? And it's not like I'm also not trying to say that I think that he's a much different player when he's starting versus closing or in a door shutting role. I keep going back to it, man. There are so few people like the ability to walk into a chaotic situation, right? There's runners on second and third. There's one out, and we got to get out of this inning. The ability to go walk on that mound and then actually just go execute your pitches like that's just to be able to have a brain that works that way. That in its own is a talent on like in itself. So I would love to have a guy like, so maybe if we're already used to Max Grubbs, right? Maybe now we can go and use a Ruger Riojas. I would be perfectly fine with bringing in a strong lefty arm, or even another righty, but just bringing in like a stud, Sunday guy. Because and you know what, Cade Bing could even bump up into that Sunday role. Add some weight on. Maybe he looks a little bit better from this last year, which he looked pretty good this last year. But all that to say, yeah, I kind of am a fan of getting Ruger back into that bullpen because I just think that Ruger can serve a role that not many players can play.
Definitely, and I will say that with so many players leaving, and a lot of them being position players, you're keeping a lot of staff, but there's no reason to not be aggressive in the numbers that you bring in from the transfer pool this year. It happened last year. I mean, guys like Jaquay Stewart and Bing were kind of underwritten about guys. They weren't talked about too much as big transfer additions, but both those guys had positive impacts on this team, and Bing's going to be a long-term player around here. I will say that Texas, they're entering the year with a lot of options for starters. It's just, do they have a third guy? Because we have these four here that are already locked in, but maybe Riojas is even better as just that long relief role. He looked his best this year when he was able to come in fourth inning, get you 4 through 7. Was a really good spot for him, get those 3-4 innings. But there's still Rarick and Flores, who both want to be a starting pitcher on this team next year, be a Tuesday or Sunday guy. So maybe adding a Sunday starter could be good, a true veteran, someone who's not going to eclipse Harrison, but not take too many long-term innings pitched away from guys like Bing and Flores and Rarick. But on the note of the lefties, I mean, you can see it's just Ethan Walker there among that group of relief pitchers with Saunier and Burns. And that relief pitching group is going to be really good because there's so much returning talent, so many returning innings pitched. But like you said, not a lot of lefties.
I mean, and maybe Hudson Hamilton bumps up into a starting role next year. I mean, it's clear that Max Weiner likes Hudson Hamilton and likes what he's seen. I mean, look, I know for as much as we, gripe and complain about, like I've griped and complained about, hey, I don't like a guy getting his first start in the most important game of the season, right? But it's clear that Max Weiner's seen something there with Hudson Hamilton that said, hey, yeah, I want to start that guy. So that's a guy that I think that we really need to watch for. Potentially, watching for Ethan Walker, see, can he continue to grow into, because hell, that was one hell of a start versus Tennessee to go out there. And that's a very good hitting team. But like you said, I mean, and also for the position players too, similar kind of theme. You saw an injury to Jared Spencer. You've seen an injury to Max Blue. You saw an injury to Ethan Mendoza for a good part of the season. Man, I just bring in. I don't care if it's at second base. I don't care if it's another third baseman. I don't care if it's another catcher. I don't care what position it is. If they're talented and they want to play at Texas, bring them in, right? Because you just don't know if you're going to need it. And it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where if you're at Texas, right? Like I know, the portal, you could have some hour-long conversation on the whole ethics of the portal and all that stuff. But you know what? If it's there, we only got, and this is another thing to pay attention to for Texas fans. Rosters go down from 40 kids to 34. So we're losing 6 roster spots, but we're also having to kind of manage what we lose in the draft, and what doesn't come through the NFL draft and the signing class. So that's something to watch for with the guys that are leaving. Like right now, we have 26 guys on the roster, but some of those guys will go to the draft. But bring as much talent in as you can to this team.
Yeah, I mean, when you've gotten to the spot where you're already winning the SEC in the regular season, there's no more rebuild years. It's retooling. So you only have about 9 hitters you're trusting on the roster currently. Maybe Pack makes that 10, or one of the freshmen emerges, or you get lucky in one of the 3. I think that's what Texas is maybe hoping for, is one of Galvan, Ballou, Flores finds their way back to Austin next year. It's a long shot, but if just one of those comes back, that's pretty huge addition by retention. But it's going to have to start soon, because like Georgia already has like 8 of 64 on like top 150 transfers. I mean, they're killing the game there. Georgia's always been really good about bringing in transfers. So Schloss is not only going to need to find some really high impact guys at positions like shortstop, right field, catcher, places like that, but also, can they find depth in the outfield? Is there a second catcher that can come in and compete with Chamberlain? Is there another lefty arm they can bring, another starter? A lot's got to happen in this next month of just bringing in dudes and bringing in competitive ball players and athletes that he likes. But I do like the Livingston addition. I think it fits exactly what they needed. Swing player in the infield, can play 3 positions there, can be the starting first baseman, lefty, 6-foot guy. It's a Schloss-Single addition. So I do think they've done a good job so far, but a lot needs to happen in the future for this team to be where it needs to be at to compete in the SEC again.
I would just kind of, for my last little note, I would say, hey, fans, Jim Schloss-Single and the staff, they're not just sitting on their hands right now. They're very much working. They know that there's some gaps in the roster that need to be filled. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I mean, I would just say, just be patient. They're working. There's some good stuff cooking. There's some good home cooking going on. It's just right now they're chopping up the vegetables,
making that mirepoix. It's been a great episode, Nash. Some of these episodes, as you see, guys, is not going to be as long during the offseason, just because not as much to talk about, especially after UTSA kind of ended their season as well. UCLA is going to go to the World Series, but
wish it were a 40-minute Omaha episode.
Yeah, you'd hope it was a prep for Omaha, but not what we have here. We're talking roster building in June, so that's what happens when your team implodes at the end. But that'll do it for us today. Thank you so much, Connor, behind the scenes, Nash, as always. Just quick little episode from us. You're going to still hear from us every week. And as always, go over to Inside Texas for the best coverage of Texas football, baseball, basketball. Football is peak recruiting season right now, getting a lot of commits. Baseball, you're going to hear a lot of portal stuff. Any portal entrance, you're going to hear from us very quickly. And any players that they get on the portal side of things, you're going to hear articles, get analysis from Nash and I. So it's the best place to go for all Texas sports needs. So thank you all so much for watching. It's been another great episode. Nash, thanks for being here as well. And everyone, have a good one. See you.
Welcome.